Hello viewers, this is Michael for Reviews, bringing you my 736 podcast. This is my 736 podcast. Like always, I'm going to speak very loudly, very clearly, and very slowly, in case you don't understand me. Also, I'm trying to do my best not to be so hard during this podcast recording as well, not to cause any audio feedback as well. And finally, if you're under 18, this audio podcast recording will contain some adult language. Once again, if you're under 18, this audio podcast recording will contain some adult language. This you're under 18. Now, if you're over 18, that means you have to watch this audio podcast recording. Now, anyway, with this and everything else out the way, let's get into the topic of this podcast. Recently, yesterday, the new season of King of the Hill, season 15 had came out, and I gotta say, they did a good job with this. With season 15. Now, I just they did a good job with this season. Now, I know that there's been complaints like if you guys haven't seen it yet, if you guys haven't seen the whole the latest season of King of the Hill, I'm just gonna, just to alert you some spoilers. So anyway, basically, there's a lot of good character development for all the main characters. Well, except for Joseph. Joseph has been, I like Joseph. He's a funny dude, but he has not been, when he has not had positive character development, when the series came back for the 14th season, when the series came back for the 14th season, he has not really had any good characters since the 14th season up to 15th season. I really wanted to see more positive characters development with Joseph in this season. I like to see that, I wanted to see what type of relationship that he has with his half sister is canon. If you watch the original one of the King of the Hill series, Joseph has a half sister. John Wicker has a daughter with somebody else, and basically, Joseph has a half sister. And basically, I like to see if they was going to address that issue in this season, but with the voice actor of John Recker, who had died, I figured they probably didn't really have the time to do so with that, just that continuity and whatnot. Anyway, and also I really liked this Nancy John Recker being slicking on or whichever, it's starting to get old. So basically, once again, Nancy was sleeping in season 14. Nancy was sleeping with John Redcorn again in this latest season. After spending time with Dale at a church retreat, Nancy once again decided to not sleep with John Redcorn anymore. And basically, I'm just getting tired of this gag with Nancy and John Redcorn. Honestly, I feel like John Redcorn, I know that John Redcorn and Nancy have a relationship, and they have a son, and they have Joseph and whatnot. But honestly, this needs to stop. This gag needs to stop. And also, I was hoping for the seeing episode with Hank, finally with his half brother from Japan, Toshi. I think it's Janushi, as I'm pronouncing his name wrong. Please forgive me. I wanted to see an episode where Hank, to see what type of relationship that that he has with has been his half brother from Japan. What's his relationship now at Hank and his half brother's age and whatnot. And also, I wanted to see an episode with Dee Dee, where Hank trying trying to, spending time with Dee Dee and whatnot. I know that Dee Dee is not. I know that Dee Dee is. I know that Dee Dee. I know that Dee Dee and Hank are the same age and whatnot. But and plus a lot of people don't like Dee Dee and whatnot. But Dee Dee, Dee Dee, has never done bad by Hank at all. So basically, yes, she's one of those Disney characters. But she never really done anything bad towards Hank. But I just like to see Hank, and Dee Dee hang out a bit more. I also would like to see, what's the name, the black dude who was living in Hank's house while he was in Saudi Arabia has not appeared in this season. So basically, who was played by he was played by what's his name? Damn, I forgot his name. Keith David, Keith David, who played the black dude who was living in Hank's house, has not showed up. His character has not showed up in this season. So basically, I was hoping to see more of that character. Also, I like to see an episode where Good Hank, Good Hank and Genoshi, Genoshi and Hank, seeing them how all Hank interact with his brother together. I like to see an episode of this. But the main thing I wanted to see in this season is Grace, Luann and Lucky's daughter. Cause I know the show wanted to see made it clear that they decided to retire Lucky and Luann's characters. And basically this kind of led to a backlash over this, So basically, everybody's wondering, how we're going to get Grace into they decide to retire Luann and Lucky's characters, and basically out of respect for the voice actors and whatnot. But we still have we got new voice actors for Dale and for Dale and whatnot. The voice actor who played Dale had died, and basically they had to replace him and whatnot. So basically, a lot of people are wondering, how would we, when are we gonna get any word about Luann and Lucky's daughter Grace? How she doing and whatnot? Will she address that? Her parents are dead. Will we see Grace? Grace show up at Hank and Peggy Sword and live with them like Luann did in the original series. A lot of people wanted to see, want to see Grace and whatnot. And basically, I believe Grace should be I believe that Grace should be her. She should be in her 20s by now. I believe, but we just have to wait and see what the channel is finally going to pull the trigger and bring Grace into this revival, into the next season of the King of Hill revival and whatnot. And also, I like the idea that the idea of Khan and Bill living together, cause this will give not only for good comedy and also has some positive character positive character development for Khan and Bill. Cause Bill is I know that Bill is a needy person and whatnot, but and Khan is a condescending jerk and all, but Khan's divorced with living with Bill, living with Bill will show that Khan doesn't want to be like Bill and whatnot, cause Bill's wife left him and whatnot, and basically, Bill always wondering will she come back and whatnot, and basically, this odd couple relationship will have good comedy and some good characters development for Bill and Khan. And also, as for Bobby and Connie's relationship, I really liked it how you know, how the ups and downs of Connie's and Bobby's relationship were portrayed in this latest season, you know, and also that, you know, it's clear that, with Connie's parents' divorce, it really had a negative effect of Connie thinking about marriage. So basically, that will come into a future, into a future plot if Bobby wants to marry. So basically, if Bobby does want to finally pull the trigger and marry Connie, this will play a major part in that decision, because, the divorce between Connie's parents really messed her up and basically painted a negative review of a marriage in Connie's eyes. So basically, that will play a major part. And also, we finally got the answer that, why Hank went to Saudi Arabia in the first place. It was all because of Buck Strickland. As you know, Hank and Buck always have this relationship. Every time that Buck messed up, Buck always depends on Hank to be his right hand man, and Buck always knows that anytime he messed up, Hank will always help him fix the business at Strickland Propane. But Buck always values Hank as his right hand man, but knows the value of Hank. Hank is a good worker and whatnot. He knows the value of Hank, but he never really saw him beyond a right hand man, and and basically finally gave him the reins to be the full time manager of Strickland Propane, and basically once that finally didn't happen, Hank got tired of that crap and therefore took the job in Saudi Arabia, and basically he hadn't did that, finally tired of Buck's try to buck like I've been a lawyer. Hank has been a loyal employee to Buck and whatnot, and at this point he just got tired of being passed over by Buck, and basically he ended up in Saudi Arabia taking that job, and therefore it wasn't so. And Hank had been quit, probably would not have. Bobby would not have pursued his dream owning his restaurant, owning his restaurant and coming to cook and whatnot. So basically, at the end of the day, Buck, even Strickland Propane is finally being tired of Buck's crap, and Hank finally being tired of Buck, led to a positive outcome, because if he had went to Saudi Arabia, they wouldn't have the nest egg they have now. Him and Peggy would have had their retirement nest egg. Bobby would never have his restaurant, and basically, and Bobby would not have reconnected with Connie again and whatnot. And Hank finally got to what he wanted the most, is to be the owner and manager of Strickland Propane. Because honestly, I really just like to see this in the original one of the series, Hank finally becoming the manager and owning Strickland Propane. But I really liked it how they did this in this new season as well. So anyway, a lot of once again, a lot of characters, a lot of the main characters had good positive character development, but I liked to see Hank's brothers. I liked to see more of Hank's brothers. I wanted to see Dee Dee. I wanted to see Grace show up in this season, but it is what it is. I also wanted to see some positive characters, positive characters development with Joseph in the season as well. And I know that a lot of people ever since they recast the voice actor who played Khan, that was played by the original voice actor who played Dale, and also Wally Chuck is playing Khan. A lot of people had problems with Wally Khan voice, but he gotten better in this season. So basically, Wally Chung, who's the new voice actor Khan, his Khan voice has gotten better in the season. And also, I really like it, the diamond. I really like it, the father dynamic between Boone Howard and Luke Jr. Luke Jr. is the girlfriend of that Boone Howard has been seasoned and it's a relationship with Luke Jr.'s mom and whatnot, and basically Boone Howard has been playing dad since season 14 and up to now. And basically, I really like the father dynamic between Boone Howard and Luke Jr. But we don't know the situation of Luke Jr.'s father. We finally get to see Luke Jr.'s mother in this season as well, but that was a good takeaway as well, and also this season, Weston had flashbacks to past episodes as well. Anyway, overall, this season was a good season. So season 13 was a good season. So basically, I can't wait to see what they do in season 16. Hoping that we will see, they will do more with other characters in there, other characters we haven't seen in a while, and do more with characters that need more characters development and whatnot. So anyway, we're gonna think about the latest episode of Keenan, the latest season of Keenan, the latest season of Keenan Hill, season 15, good, bad, or just okay. Please let me know in the comments below. Anyway, signing off. Some screen reviews. 1.